It's that time again. It's another Stark Dark Open series. After the success of the first one, they're hosting a second one. Once again, doing standard and retro, this time on November 1st and November 2nd. It's going to be in Illinois at Impact Gaming Center. And if you want to find out more info as we get closer to the date of the tournaments, check out this link. Welcome back, everybody. We are less than 24 hours away at the time of this upload from the Retro Ace Arena. And if you haven't picked the deck yet, I've got a very crazy Terry Bogard 2 deck. Yeah, they did the reprint for Terry2, so you knew I was going to get around to the Terry Bogard deck profile because this is my favorite character and the character that got me into Universes. Now, this is technically speaking, not the exact copy, but I was down to play either version of Terry Bogard. But back in the day, neither one was considered very good. So if you see, he's got commit, commit one foundation, draw two cards. It's All Might 3's in hand. So if you like playing All Might 3, he's got two of the same symbols. He's got one of the same abilities. So very familiar play style where you get to be sort of greedy on offense, right? And then enhance your non-throw attack. It's +1 speed and +3 damage. So it's a lot of stats, but it's only playable if this attack is preceded by a non-attack card in your card pool. So it has to be the card immediately before it, right? It has to be non-attack, attack, and then another non-attack, and then an attack. So it has to be the card immediately preceding it, right? So there, you're gonna see in the foundation base, we try to compensate for that a lot because the deck I've got for you today is a Wombo Combo Staff Strike Trinity Geyser deck. So Staff Strike is kind of like the spiritual reprint, a more sane version of Trinity Geyser. They're both 6 difficulty. They're both mid attacks that are 4 speed. But Staff Strike's a little less damage, but it's powerful too to make up for it. But they both combo off foundations. And so Staff Strike combos off weapon, any weapon card, and then a foundation. And Trinity Geyser combos off an attack, foundation. So the win condition for this deck, the way you're probably going to want to try to set up your turns, is to get a Staff Strike combo as soon as possible. So then you can play 2 foundations after it, and then a Trinity Geyser. Now the issue is Trinity Geyser is not a weapon, so it does not ignore progressive difficulty. So the other way to set it up is to do the Trinity Geyser combo first, which seems harder. And it kind of is harder. And I thought in my playtest, I thought I would lead off with Trinity Geyser a lot more often, but it was less risky to do the Staff Strike first. So you'll see why when we get into the foundations. But both of these cards, they have a combo enhance that ignores progressive difficulty for the next number of cards you play. For Staff Strike, it's the next 2 weapons. And for Trinity Geyser, it's the next 3 cards you play total. Trinity Geyser also draws you 3 cards, and Staff Strike draws you a card for each foundation in your card pool. So they're not exactly the same. They do have a few differences in how they function. But for the most part, they're just 2 major, huge combo attacks that give you a big, long string, and they enable Terry's Enhance very well. The other major attack in this deck is Black Serpent. It's a combo foundation. It's got stun 1, and it has combo E that's attack. It's 2 damage for each foundation in your card pool. And for those of you who have ever seen a Staff Strike deck, for those of you who have ever played Staff Strike, you know that the card pool gets pretty long if you chain 2 of them together. You get a lot of foundations in there. And any of you have played Trinity Geyser know that, you know, the same can kind of be said for Trinity Geyser. So expect Black Serpent to be swinging for like 10 damage plus Terry's Enhance pretty often because it naturally combos off Terry's Enhance. I've also got Create Bow Staff because sometimes you just don't have the right foundation in your card pool. Unfortunately, it only gets weapon foundations, so we're a little limited, and the weapon foundations are not the ones we want to pick up the most, is how I'll put that. But, you know, I think adding a Hanya to your hand because it gets any asset, or grabbing a weapon foundation like the original Mech Ninja is definitely something you're going to want to do. Create Capturing Net. So this one's really good because it also, again, it combos off Terry's natural enhance of wanting to play a non-attack first. It's then going to get stunned too, and then you get to build a foundation to help your chains keep going. And the last attack is kind of a poke attack. So this is kind of your I'm going to get set up. This is your I'm going to play a poke turn 2, build a bunch of foundations, and that is akimbo. So akimbo is an attack where you're going to try to build like 5 foundations in front of it, and you're not going to play this on an 8. You're not going to play this on a 9, I promise, with the way the foundation base is set up. But you're going to want to get a bunch of foundations in front of it. You check a 5+, and then you draw like 5 cards. You reset your hand, and then Terry also has more card draw on the back end. So this is kind of how you get ahead. When you're stringing out, when you're playing, when you're going for the win, essentially, with your Staff Strike and Trainee Geyser combos, this is just a 3 high for 8, 4 diff often, because it has enhanced this attack, it's plus X damage. X equals the printed control of the first card in your card pool, which is almost always going to be a 5 or a 6. So very strong stuff from Akimbo. This card is absolutely like insane in the decks that want it, right? And like totally useless in the decks that don't. And I think this is definitely a deck that wants it. I'm going to address the sideboard at this point because the sideboard is basically all reversals. They're all noteworthy reversals because one of the strategies that Terry2 has that works really well is blocking with a non-attack card, blocking with a foundation, and then playing a reversal for a big damage payoff. So I got just a handful here if you want to take a look at these. I didn't feel like they really worked with the Staff Strike Trainee Geyser sort of game plan. Curse Blast's probably the one that does the most, but it's the next card you play ignores progressive difficulty. And there's not too often where you'll want to play an attack directly after Kersplat, so it gets weird. But Kersplat does work really well with Not Over Yet. That's one of my favorite retro combos, where you make the Not Over Yet not count towards progressive. You play it on a 2, and then your next attack ignores progressive difficulty. So that is something to consider. I think it's the best of these reversal choices. I guess there's also Hydra Fork, which is not a reversal, but it's another 2-check, and it combos Attack Foundation. So your card pool is going to look like Attack Foundation Hydra Fork, plus whatever came before it. But the combo enhance lets you play the powerful 3 to discard foundations from your card pool. So it's not a weapon, though. So I didn't think it was going to gel with the Staff Strike deck. You could play Trainee Geyser and this card instead of Staff Strike and go for like a shorter, more punchy sort of offense, but it's hard to recommend playing 6 2-checks or 8 2-checks without any additional cards that really, really help you check around it, I'll say. But you can build incredibly well with this deck, so you'll see in the foundation base. Rising Tackle is Terry's reversal. It makes a lot of sense in this deck. If you play it as a reversal, you get to draw a card, and then if it deals damage, you get to build a foundation from your card pool to your staging area. That's pretty solid, but there is kind of just a better version of this card, and that's Power Flip. Not only is it a 5 high 5 instead of a 4 high 5, it's got Stun 1 as a reversal, and you build all the foundations just as an enhance. So I put Rising Tackle on here because it's Terry's thing, and I like Terry cards, and Rising Tackle's a cool move, but Power Flip is definitely the better option. That Desperation Enhance to add a foundation from your discard pile to the beginning of your card pool has won me so many games playing it in other characters because you tutor the foundation you want to build that keeps you alive or kills your rival on their turn, and then you build it down and you get a whole bunch of extra resources. So Power Flip is a great one, but again, it's not a weapon, so it doesn't gel with Staff Strike specifically. But this is a great one where if you've got a Trinity Geyser chain going and you've got 5+ foundations in your card pool, and then, your last card that ignores progressive is a Power Flip, you can basically reset your card pool down to like 3 cards that, 3 attacks and build like 5 foundations. And it's kind of like you just skipped your opponent's turn. So definitely be on the lookout for this one. This is probably the most impactful one to just mix in, and probably the best one if you wanted to go for a reversal based strategy with this character. The last one is Reborn Seraphic Wing. This one's just kind of crazy. Overall, it's a 3 mid for 5 div, so not great. But after you play this attack, commit one of your opponent's assets or foundations. Enhances cannot be canceled during this attack's enhance step. So this one is great for closing out games. It's a response speed targeted snipe. I mean, again, you play it on your opponent's turn. Very powerful stuff. So this is one of those. It's kind of like an attack with protection, right? It's almost like I don't know how, but it's almost like a Yu-Gi-Oh boss monster where you can't negate during it. So very cool stuff there. But let's look at the actions because they're very similar. Throw it down. If you saw in the last deck profile, it's got that nifty little response. But here we do want the form. Here the form basically just doubles up Terry's in hands. So if the next card you play is an attack, it'll get 1 speed and 3 damage. And if it deals damage, you draw a card. So that's sick. But that's just what Terry does, right? 1 speed, 3 damage. So you get a +2, +6 attack. Massive stats. This doesn't count towards progressive difficulty ever, which is very cool, very nice. But the one that's a little bit better, in my opinion, is Not Over Yet. If any of you have seen the Future is Now Jiro decks that play Staff Strike, this is that. This is that same card. Your next attack this turn gets +2/+2 and ignores progressive, except now you can do it as many times as you want during your turn. It also has E, discard X cards, draw X+1, so it kind of counts itself because it'll sit in the card pool too. But X equals the number of other cards in your card pool. So if you get like 4 cards in your card pool, your Trinity Geyser didn't draw you anything, your Staff Strike didn't draw you anything, you can play Not Over Yet as a 2-diff action, discard your hand, draw a whole new hand. Works great with decks that clog their card pool, but you have to be careful because discard X cards is the cost. So if you have too many cards in your card pool and not enough cards in your hand, you cannot do that function of the card. But 99.9% of the time, you want to play that form anyways to get the party started, to get your Staff Strikes rolling, pretty much the same way you did with the Jiro decks. Moving on to the foundations, there's one huge major theme, and that is this card does not count towards progressive difficulty to play attacks. Sometimes it says for any reason, but mostly it's to play attacks. So we've got All Might's Mentorship does that. We've got Sense of Morals doesn't count for anything. Season Guide doesn't count for anything. Both these cards don't count, but they also don't have block mods. So you got to be a little careful. The deck can be a little bricky on defense at times. Don't rely on the blind draw every time. But Sense of Morals is an absolutely great way to set up your Staff Strike and your Trinity Geyser combos. It's pretty handy to play around Breaker and stuff like that anyways. But both of these do not count towards progressive difficulty. Season Guide also lets you reveal the top card of your deck after you play an attack, or after an attack is played if you get it in your rival's card pool on their turn somehow. But so this one will help you pass checks and things like that. And that's why if you look, there's not a lot of spam for a 2-check deck, but you have 8 cards that you play on a 2, and they don't count towards progressive. So they're like better than a 0-diff 90% of the time. And if you open with 2 of these cards, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a stable build. So I think they definitely warrant their inclusion here. There's also Reborn Human, doesn't count towards progressive difficulty to play attacks. And then there's One Man Wolfpack, a 0-diff that doesn't count towards progressive difficulty to play attacks. This one also is Destroy this foundation. Add 1 foundation from your card pool to your hand. That's not going to come up very often, but where it does is when you draw cards like, not Rising Star, the original Mechanical Ninja. So I mentioned this with Bow Staff. This one has response. After you play this card, your next check to play a weapon card gets +2. So not only does that work with blocking, it also has Breaker 1, by the way. But this is how you get the Staff Strike going. And this is why Staff Strike was a little bit easier to pull off, more so than the Training Geyser to get things going. Because a lot of times I could play, a weapon foundation like Swift and Nimble, which gives your weapon attack damage equal to the number of weapon cards in your card pool, which a lot of these foundations are. So I could play Floating Around My Babies, Original Mech Ninja on a 3, respond +2 to a Staff Strike check. I'm probably going to commit 1 card to play that now. Pretty cool. If I play a Season Guide and then a Mech Ninja, Or no, I have to do it the other way, right? Yeah, it's weapon foundation. Well, but if you have like a season guide in the card pool, if you play a weapon attack and then an original mech ninja into staff strike, it'll be a lot easier a lot of the time. But you want to start with these cards like Sense of Morals and Season Guide because that's how you're going to get additional card draw out of Staff Strike. We have a couple of one-ofs here. Night Watch, we're playing some actions. And the Deadlock ability adds Trinity Geyser and Staff Strike back to your hand from the card pool. So looping a Trinity Geyser is a great way to win a game long-term. Energy Charge. After you play a combo ability, your attack gets 1/1. That's kind of cute. For the most part, this is here for the defensive ability. But the little bit of 1/1 you get on, almost, I guess, more than half your attacks, right? Like 12 out of 18 being combo attacks is not to be underestimated. But this one, it ignores progressive difficulty when you block with it and gives the attack -2 speed. And we kind of needed some bit of defense, and I thought this one just sort of fit the theme overall, which is nice. We talked about Mech Ninja. It's mostly there for the +2 to the check, but it also has your mid attacks get +1 damage and your high attacks get +1 speed. Shadow Inheritance. So this one is in here as another low breaker. We don't have a lot of low blocks. There's only 10, but the ones we have are all breakers. And this one is sort of your fake speed pump. So this says, before a player attempts to block this attack, their block modifier gets +1 or -3 for each non-attack in your card pool. So when you're playing defense and you block 2 attacks with 2 non-attack cards, you can respond for -6 to your block mod. So -6 speed. So this one is a really good speed hate card. And then Terry doesn't pump speed that much. He gives 1 speed. And most of the time this deck is looking to play just like 10 attacks in a turn. And by the time you've played your 10th +3 damage move or your second Black Serpent, hopefully your opponent loses. But when you need that speed pump, Shadow Inheritance can ratchet that number up surprisingly quickly. Getting +4, +5 out of this, absolutely insane. And it's a great timing. The response commit before they attempt to block means your opponent's going to think that they can block, not use speed hate that they already have, and then you're going to bamboozle them with the response. Champion of Southtown is a one of here. It could probably be dropped if I'm being honest, but it adds a foundation to your card pool that does not count towards progressive difficulty as a form. So this is kind of how you go fish up a weapon foundation to get Staff Strike started. It's also how, you form in a weapon foundation. You play an OG Mech Ninja. All of a sudden, Staff Strike is basically on a 5. So I waffled between this one being super necessary for being consistent versus just being like an okay tech piece. But this one, it used to be really integral to the goofy Trinity Geysers of the world. Perfect Accuracy is a weapon foundation that does the old version of seal. It technically doesn't seal a card because it doesn't get rid of continuous abilities. It just says abilities on that card cannot be played. So do not think of this strictly as a seal against statics, but it does shut off played abilities. It is a targeted snipe, but it's also a weapon foundation, and that was pretty important. And then you should all know Floating Around My Babies by now. So this deck is not the best deck. I'm not going to lie to you and say that this deck is even super competitive, but what this deck is it's fun, it's over the top, it's wacky, and I guarantee you that unless you're playing against like a 7-hander with no defense, it's pretty rare that your games will play out the same way. You'll probably start off with the big wombo combo, and your card pool might look very similar, but deciding when and where to build a foundation with Rising Starlit or, create Capture Net, and deciding when and where to, add a card to your card pool with Bow Staff. That's going to be more relevant than it might appear on paper. So I think this deck has a lot of cool and interesting lines. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. The deck list should be down in the comments if I remember this time. And I hope to see you guys there at the Retro Ace Arena.